everyone. Welcome to this week's Karma Cards. So let's talk about energy this week. Let's see. We just had last week the total solar eclipse plus new moon that happened in Aries, the second new moon in Aries. And whenever we're dealing with eclipses, we're also dealing with the node points. So the North Node was activated in that last eclipse. And then in this week, we're sort of in a processing period because next week we have the lunar eclipse plus full moon in Scorpio, which is pointing at the South Node. So right now we're in this moment of, and we also have a solar conjunction with the North Node. So I want to talk about that a little today because the North Node represents what we are striving for. Sometimes it can even represent our destiny, but it can also represent like what we are constantly striving after. So I wanted to break it down in kind of the overall sense of what the North Node in Taurus is talking about, and that's striving towards security, right? It's striving towards security, to aligning to values, to feeling worthiness. Possessions can come up underneath that, and money as well. So financial security being a very big part of it. But on a personal level, the striving can show up in our lives in a very different way. And what's really interesting is that it can be hard to see directly what we're striving for or what we're hungry for. And it reminds me of the metaphor that Japan has about the hungry ghost. Right? So there's a ghost who's incredibly hungry, but it has a pinhole for a mouth. And so it's always trying to consume what it believes will satiate it, but it never feels satisfaction. It can never feed itself enough to feel satisfied. And the shadow kind of part of the North Node does reflect that same energy. So it reflects something that you are striving for or hungry for, but never quite feel satiated. And that's sort of the lesson of this North Node, is that you're always going to be desiring something at a core level that even when you get it, it might not feel like it's enough. And that got me thinking about the Enneagram, because the Enneagram breaks down personalities into 10 types. And it really, I think, is a helpful tool for understanding what drives some deeper striving. So you might think that on the surface, you're striving to find love, or you're striving to build a career, or you're striving to create a really harmonious relationship, or incredible financial security. But there's always something underneath that's driving it. And that is the thing that we're really hungry for. What I find helpful about the Enneagram type is that it breaks it down into personality types that we will all experience every personality type, but there's one area that really drives our growth or keeps us sort of locked in a pattern, and that striving for something that you can't quite fulfill is one of the patterns we can get locked in. So I thought I'd share with you the 9 Enneagram types and their basic fears, which actually drive their hunger. So I'm going to break that down for you. Now, if you've never taken your Enneagram type test, I'll put a link here to a free test. I think it's really helpful. It is like a lot of questions, and some of them are repeating. It's designed that way on purpose so that it can get the most accurate read of your personality type. Now, just like any other quiz or anything else that we use to define us, is this the definition of you? No. But is it a tool that can help you see hidden behavioral patterns and then show you how to make conscious change so that you can actually move into the direction of your growth? Yes, that's what it's great for. And that's what I like to utilize it for. So I'm going to share with you now the 9 Enneagram types, their basic fears, and how that develops as an insatiable hunger inside of that personality type that would drive them in a certain direction. And if any of them sound, actually, a few of them might sound resonating for you. I know they do for me, but one of them's really going to be that core issue. And as you identify that core issue, you can see how you can understand, you start to understand that this might be a need I continuously feel. And I think that as we bring that into our consciousness, that maybe I never actually feed this hungry ghost, maybe it always remains hungry, then we stop being driven by it or pulled by it so much, and we start to recognize that yes, it's a catalyst that moves me forward, but it's not my goal. And I think when we stop making it our goal and we just recognize that it's a driving force in us, that we gain as we gain that awareness back, we also have some more control over it, and it stops controlling us. And it's, when you hit the nail on the head with which one you are, you're going to see, oh my God, yeah, all my life, this has been the core this is what drives some of my behavior. And as you get aware of it, you can start balancing it within yourself and noticing that the intensity of the need naturally decreases, even though it will always be present with you. All right, so here's a basic breakdown of the Enneagram types and their basic fear, which leads to the insatiable hunger that they feel. So if you're an Enneagram type 1, you're known as the reformer. Now, they have a basic fear of feeling evil, corrupt, or defective. They're also called the perfectionist, sometimes in the materials. So their fear is that they're somehow not a good person, a fear of ultimate badness or defection. There's something wrong with them. What drives them is that need to prove that they're a good person, prove that ultimate goodness within them. And so that's what they're hungry for, is that feeling of being perfected or good is what drives them forward unconsciously. All right, if you're a type 2 Enneagram, you're known as the helper, and the basic fears of the helper is a feeling of maybe being unwanted, unworthy, or unworthy of love. And so they're always striving to feel loved and appreciated, that they're needed and wanted, and that's what drives them. Now, before I go on, I want to mention that many times with the Enneagram, what you're going to find is you're a dominant type, but you also lean into one category or another. So you're a dominant type with a subtype. So some people are purely one type. Most people kind of are a dominant type that leans into another, and that helps to inform that there's actually a couple different things that go on. And what you'll notice is the way that they combine makes sense. I mean, one will lead into the other. So for example, type 3, the achiever, their greatest fear is that they're unworthy or unvaluable. And so their constant hunger is a validation that they're worthy, that they have value. And that's what's guiding them to keep going forward, right? That's the ghost they can't feed. Now you can see that if you were a 3 with a wing to a 2, that you feel unloved and unvalued. So you do things that would increase the feelings of love or the feelings of value you get, because that's what you feel like you're missing. Type 4 is called the individualist, sometimes called the artist, and their fear is that they have no personal identity or a lack of personal significance. So what drives them is this desire to be unique, to strive to be something that sets them apart and shows them that they have a uniqueness in their life. They're constantly hungry for creating a sense of that unique or originality. Number 5 is called the investigator. Their basic fear is being useless, helpless, or incapable. So they're always trying to strive to prove that they are capable, that they can do this on their own, right? There's even sort of a sense of independence in the 5, the investigator, but they want to show that they are intelligent and that they're capable and they can do this on their own. And that's what constantly guides them. And whenever they run into situations that shows they need other people, it can kind of activate that hunger of, I've got to do this by myself. Number 6, this is called the loyalist, and their basic fear is they're not being guided or supported. And so they're constantly looking for where they can go to feel the guidance or support in their lives. And they usually do that through a type of exchange by being so loyal. They actually are more of a guidance and supporting force in life, but they're hungry for that themselves, and they sort of work on that energy of an exchange. They're also always looking for a type of protection. this group tends to feel the most unprotected, and so they're always striving or hungry for protection. Number 7 is the enthusiast, and their basic fear is being deprived or in pain, which I think is something that, all of us have experienced these at some point in time, but this one I feel like is just kind of resonant, feels sort of like childhood to me with the enthusiast. So they're always looking for delight and pleasure and stimulation and things that help them feel like life is good, life is full of light. They want the new. They don't want to be deprived of those experiences. So they really seek out, they're the adventure seekers of the group. They want adventure. They want it to be new and fresh and feel good. Number 8 is the challenger, and their basic fear is being harmed or controlled. So they're always seeking to feel a sense of their own empowerment. They're showing that they are an empowered being. And yet, just like all the other types, when facing the basic fear of maybe something could be more powerful than me, they never quite feel their full sense of power. So they always feel like they have to fight or be in a fight with something. And this, again, none of this is consciously happening, by the way. With all of these types, this is happening more at a subconscious, almost primitive level, that this is what drives the behavior or the striving that you have in your life, is to prove something. All of these types want to prove something to themselves and to the world, and they see the outside world as a way to get it. One of the things that we have to learn during this experience is that we're dominantly supposed to provide these for ourselves. It doesn't mean the outside world doesn't become a part of that. But until we start recognizing our own ability to provide the thing we're afraid we're missing, we're constantly striving to get it. And number 9 is the peacemaker. And their fear is sort of like the ultimate fear, which is loss and separation. So this feeling of being without. And so they often strive to do the opposite of what the 8 would do, where they're fighting for their power. The peacemaker would bring the peace, right? They would settle. They would say, I don't need to fight for this. I just want to be, I just don't want to be separated. I don't want to lose anything. I just want to hold on and maintain. And again, learning how to give this to ourselves, right? All of these things, if you put it together, I think make a whole, the most holistic personality. But when we get stuck in sort of one position, this is where we find that we're constantly striving, and it ends up motivating the behaviors that we have when working with other people. So in this week, the team is asking us, as we're in this window between the ultimate letting go, which is going to be the lunar eclipse in the full moon during the South Node point, there's an ultimate letting go that's going to happen there. In this week, we're being asked to notice, what am I striving for? Like, what subconsciously drives me to do the things I do? Like, if I constantly say yes to people, am I saying yes because I'm ultimately afraid that I won't be supported, or maybe that I'll be separated or lose them? Am I saying yes so that I can feel part of something, or maybe valuable or loved? Or am I saying yes because I actually want to say yes? And that's just one example of how we can identify our striving behavior. And hopefully understanding some of these motivations will help you see whatever you might be striving for. And again, we all do it, and it is sort of the human condition to do it. So it's not to say that you're not developed or advanced enough that you don't strive. I think we all do. I recognize myself in several of these definitions, and I can see my behaviors through that. And what I notice is that when I catch it, I feel more at peace. I feel more grounded. I feel more empowered. And when I'm unconscious of it, I find that it's more like a cat being swung by its tail. I'm just kind of like, things can send me that when I'm aware of it, they just don't, right? I can let it go more easily. So hopefully having this information helps you see it, and you can start to find more grounding and inner peace by becoming consciously aware of it. And with that, let's do this week's karma cards. Right. So if you're new to karma cards, let me quickly show you how these work. I have 3 decks here, planets, signs of the zodiac, and the houses of astrology. And I've already asked my team, what is the message you have for us this week? And I have two sets of answers. A set in red, which are action related, and a set in blue, which are outcome related. And the way that you play is you tune in with that beautiful intuition of yours and feel, what do you need this week? Are you looking for action related guidance or outcomes? And of course, you can always choose both. While you are choosing, let me tell you the timing for this reading. This reading is for April 26th through May 3rd. And the flavor of this reading, we've got the moon showing up, so we know this is going to be about emotions and our feeling state. In the sign of Scorpio, which is where the South Node is out, this is where we're heading, Scorpio. So this has to do with our sense of power, empowerment, surrendering, all of those, transformation, all those fun topics. In the 5th house, which is the fun house, which is getting back to our inner child state, but also anything that includes joy in life is in the 5th house. All right, so for those who are choosing action, your spiritual action at this time is to defend the extraordinary power of prayer with the trust of a child. So again, this is really interesting because earlier I was recording something with my friend Amber about the pineal gland. We were talking about things that can block it up. And ultimately what my team had said during that was, the power of your intention is very powerful and it can overcome anything that appears as an overwhelming obstacle. Your intention can overcome that. And it reminds me of this because prayer is a type of an intention, isn't it? It's the asking of the divine, of the higher power for the assistance or direction that you'd like to go in. And so understanding that the asking is so important. And my team always says, we don't ask enough. We can ask for so much more. Even though we do feel like we're here having this very individual and alone experience, you have more support than perhaps you'll ever be able to recognize. And you're guiding it. You're the leader. You're in charge. And so should you want to do this alone, of course you're going to get to do it alone because your free will always be respected. But should you need guidance or help or assistance, all you have to do is ask. And as a child, we inherently understand this. I mean, we're sort of trained into it, whether it's manipulative or not. I think it's a little of both, but something like believing in Santa Claus, like ask Santa Claus for what you want and Santa Claus will provide. Children go right into that. Same with the Easter Bunny, same with Tooth Fairy. Children give all their trust into that. And so regardless of whether or not those particular things are manipulative or not, the point to focus on is that we understand how to fully trust in something we cannot see. And as children, we do this perfectly. And we're being asked to do that when it comes to prayer and to recognize how powerful it is. That should you need guidance, assistance, or help, all you need to do is ask. All right, mental action at this time. Accept the highest and lowest aspects of fun, romance, and making art. It's the power of enjoyment. It's really interesting again, because I was just talking about some of the lowest aspects are the addiction to it or the overuse of it has a negative or derogatory effect just as much as not having enjoyment or fun or pleasure in your life also has that negative effect. So it's asking us to consider the polarities of enjoyment, fun, romance, sex, making art, all of this. There is a balance that we're meant to strike, but until we can't, to strike the balance is to consider the extremities and find that happy medium in between. So again, we're being asked to consider polarity, not avoid it, not just go, I'm just going to find that neutral amount. I don't think we can find the middle point in anything unless we consider the extremes or contemplate those. And sometimes, and in some cases, even go there just to experience it. And we're being asked to just accept that's how we find the balance. Physical action at this time, let your feelings tell you how to control the situation and do it dramatically. All right, so when I ask my team about that, they're like, remember, what is it you can control? What can you really control? Is it the outside world? Is it what other people do? Is it circumstances or situations? And the answer is no. Is it perspective? Is it response? Is it reaction? Is it attitude? The answer is yes. So that's the type of control they're talking about here. You let your emotions show you how to find that center of control within yourself. And the doing it dramatically, I think they're simply saying here, it's not like a dramatic action. It's like, see the dramatic difference. Right now we are under an energy where there is sort of a dramatic difference. And if we go back to the subject I was talking about today, where insatiable hunger or being driven to something, there is a difference between striving after something with no conscious awareness and letting it lead you, and being consciously aware of what you're driven by and using it to your advantage, right? Meaning, like, I know that if I activate this feeling of needing to feel lovable, that I'm, I can do great acts, I can do loving things, right? And I recognize that I need to accept my own lovability, and that's not what drives me, but it does make me want to go there. And so that's a way to sort of use that drive to put you in the right direction without being driven by a need that can't be fulfilled unless you fulfill it within yourself. So now let's look at outcomes for the moon in Scorpio in the 5th house, or the fun house. The spiritual outcome is the nurturing of purification to resurrect the power of love. I like that, the nurturing of purification to resurrect the power of love. This reminds me of something I wanted to tell you during the energy portion that I totally forgot. You're probably feeling it, but on Sunday, we had the KPN index go all the way up to 8, and I believe the max is 9. So we saw that beautiful Aurora Borealis come out. I talked about it in another reading I did earlier this week. We had a lot of solar energy coming in, and as this solar energy comes in, it purges out anything that's not a vibrational match. So it's very purifying and cleansing on an energetic level. And so the nurturing of purification to resurrect the power of love, that's exactly what's happening as we get these solar energy increases with the ascension energy. We're resurrecting our true power, which is the power of love. And we are going through a type of purification / detox at this time. And so it is important that while we are looking at what drives our behavior, what drives us, that we're also looking at it through the lens of wanting to understand and not wanting to pick ourselves apart, right? We're not making ourselves wrong for what we strive for. We're simply realizing that as long as I strive for this outside of myself, I never feed it within, right? So for example, I'm an Enneagram type 3, we're the achievers, and we're constantly wanting to feel worthy or valuable. And as long as I make it about what I put out into the world and does this give me value, I can never quite feel that worthiness or the value. But if I focus on just being worthy because I'm here, because every human being is precious and I'm included in that, I can feel that worthiness start to fill up, and I stop needing other people to validate it. And so that's kind of what this is talking about. We want to nurture that part of ourself that feels like it's without something, right? So if we feel like we're without support, we need to work on supporting ourselves. If we feel like life is boring, mundane, or painful, or I'm being deprived, you need to look at, well, what am I depriving myself of? Is it things or experiences, or am I depriving myself of attention, or am I depriving myself of compassion? We want to pay attention. If I think that someone is constantly trying to disempower me, I need to look at where I constantly feel disempowered, right? As we do these things, we are nurturing and purifying ourself on an energetic level. And as we do that, just the power of love can shine through even more. Mental outcome at this time: feelings caused by the secrets of investment, gambles, and other games. And I kind of feel like it's talking to what I'm suggesting that we do when we look in and see what drives our desire. That does feel like a gamble. It feels like a risk, because as soon as we start looking under the hood of our own life and see how we're operating, the things that are the patterns of our behavior, though, the reason why we're constantly in certain situations, it starts to come to a head and we start to see it. And at first, when we are seeing it, it can feel a little overwhelming, like, oh shit, this is why I keep finding myself in X scenario, or this is why I keep shooting myself in the foot. When we see that for the first time, that can be an overwhelming feeling, and it can cause us to feel many things, including not wanting to look, wanting to be resistant. Just know, I mean, that's actually one of the reasons why a lot of people don't want to go there. You know, if they haven't gone there yet, that's kind of why, because it can feel overwhelming. It can feel a little bit like cognitive dissonance, where your belief about what's happening to you is being challenged by the reality of your own behavior. And even though it can be a difficult task sometimes, or a challenge, it's ultimately what sets you free. And it's ultimately what allows you to move forward with more of a understanding of yourself and a grounding that truly leads to, like I said, there's a kind of dramatic energy of a dramatic shift right now. I mean, we're in the middle of eclipse season with the, Mercury retrograde happening and all this solar activity. The shifting is dramatic, but dramatic doesn't mean bad. It just means obvious. It's very obvious. And so this shift can actually be a shift for something quite good. It's just the shifting from one side to another can be a little bit intense. And so if you accept that that's part of it, I think it can make it easier for you. Physical outcome at this time: reactions resulting from the power of your creations. Right, so the dramatic shift that's happening, or the opportunity to dramatically shift that's happening for us, you're going to see it, you're going to feel it. It's going to be like a night and day kind of energy when you realize, oh, that's why I keep feeling so unsatisfied. And now that I see it, now I start to give it to myself and I feel satisfaction. It changes my perspective on what's happening in life in general. Well, this is going to also be seen by others. It's going to have a ripple effect. People are going to notice, and you might notice some other people sort of changing too. And it's like something is being shed, like an old skin is being shed now. And we just need to remember for ourselves and for other people that we change. And this is a great opportunity to embrace the changes that you make and recognize it's all a part of you. You haven't really lost anything. You're only evolving. And allow for the evolving of others. So as they evolve and change, rather than feeling threatened by it or trying to be like, well, you used to be like this, so you're at your core like that. Trying to accept that evolution that's happening. As you accept it for yourself, you're going to be able to accept it for others more easily. But let's practice also being that place where we are responding to each other from who we are, not what we think the other person was based on a past perception. So with that, I'm sending you so much love. I hope you have a beautiful week, and I can't wait to see you at the next Karma Cards. Mwah.